So these large-scale cyberpunk sort of scenes in Blender are really popular on Instagram, and they're really impressive and they look really impressive and they have a lot of detail, but there's a couple of tricks that make it way easier to make them, where it's usually faking a lot of detail through textures and also lighting tricks, and I wanted to break that down today. So this is kind of what the scene is looking like out of the box, and it looks really complicated, to be completely honest, but it is actually, if you kind of come out here, you can sort of see that a lot of these buildings are made out of these really simple shapes. Alright, so just bringing in one of these assets here, you can see once it's sort of lit up in a way like this, that it's actually pretty simple what's going on here, and they're actually pretty simple shapes. Like these are all just cubes with bevels, and then this inside one is also just a cube that's not even beveled. But the way I'm doing this is essentially this is just, if we go look at the material here, this is just a cube with a cube projection of a texture like this, which you know, is like something like this. For example, I have a ton of these that I just cycle between, and the way I do this is I plug the image here into the alpha, which pretty much just removes the dark parts and creates these sort of this breakup here based on the image, and then I plug the other into the emission, which makes the emissive cube. Unfortunately this isn't enough, so then what I sort of do to break this up is I use these, which is just a kind of concretified cube, and on these, if you look closer, you can sort of see that there's these gaps and these little holes, and essentially what these are is you don't notice it too much when there's nothing lit underneath, but if you grab something like this, which is the ones I like to use by this guy called Yakib, and I think these are on locationstextures.com, I could be wrong though, and these are essentially just like a pack of really cool sort of sci-fi patterns in black and white, and essentially what I do is I use that image here, I tile it up, and then I clamp the values. As you can see, if I do this, it changes it, but I clamp it like this, so there's just a little bit of light poking through, and then I plug that into the alpha. And what this does is, like, from further away, so like up close, it's sort of, you can notice that there's just a texture that's cutting out part of the geo on the material, but from further away it looks like there's a lot of detail and geometry and modeling going on here, when in reality it's really only just a texture that's cutting these out. And it's a really easy way to sort of fake this sort of detail in a scene like this. So another thing that I found pretty tricky with scenes like this when I was kind of starting to make them was actually the lighting. Because it's dark, you have to be really quite intentional of your lights, and you actually have a lot going on. You have these city lights, like these ones, and then you also have these holograms and stuff. And the problem I ran into was when I started placing a lot of holograms, is eventually you kind of get the same brightness all over, and your image starts to look really flat and stuff. So for example, in this image, I wanted to highlight this guy looking out over the cityscape, and the way I sort of did that is, first of all, this building is the main kind of POV, which I wanted to show off, and I made these holograms here brighter. So these ones are like at 333, and then these other ones around the edges are a bit less. So the ones in the center are brighter, which ends up creating this effect that the more of the light is coming from them, which means more of the focus of the image is pulled towards the center. Another thing which I really wanted was to have, because it's sort of like a silhouette composition of this dude, I wanted to have this bright source of light coming from where he is. So you'll notice that the image is sort of brighter towards here, which kind of naturally draws the eye and creates that really strong contrast of him and the cityscape.